And after that trip, I got this weird flu, and I was never, ever the same after that trip. One of the first signs that I knew something was really wrong is I was drying my hair one morning, and I literally had a bald spot that was like size of like a $50, just like on the top of my head out of nowhere.
Erika has worked through so many health challenges and is now a certified health coach, nationally recognized cookbook author, and founder of Full Circle Media, a marketing agency for health professionals. Her journey includes a disappointing experience starting with traditional medicine and continues with celiac disease, Lyme disease, mold toxicity, lipedema, and multiple autoimmune conditions.
I was just like becoming like a shell of myself, and I went to my Western doctor. I was like, I just did some testing and I have Lyme disease, and she was like so mad that I would even suggest that I had Lyme. She definitely was one of those doctors that doesn't really believe in Lyme, especially chronic Lyme, and she was just like, you don't have Lyme. I was like, then what do I have? I've been seeing you for multiple years now, complaining about these issues. You've done testing on me. She's like, I don't know, you have some sort of autoimmune disease I just haven't tested you for. I was like, then test me for everything.
Hi, my name is Chris Burris. I'm a longevity expert and the chief scientist at a lab focused on a longevity molecule. My primary focus is to help people live longer and better lives with science. Make sure to subscribe and share so you and your friends can live longer and better. Well, actually, so you and your friends can live beyond the norms.
Hi, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Beyond the Norms Health and Longevity Podcast. I met our next guest, Erika Schlick, at the recent Dave Asprey Biohacking Conference. As we were chatting, it became clear that Erika is doing some pretty cool things and has a story that meant we should have her on our podcast. Erika has worked through so many health challenges and is now a certified health coach, nationally recognized cookbook author, and founder of Full Circle Media, a marketing agency for health professionals. Her journey includes a disappointing experience starting with traditional medicine and continues with celiac disease, Lyme disease, mold toxicity, lipedema, and multiple autoimmune conditions. Is that it? Okay? We'll get into those.
Hopefully that's it.
Hopefully, yeah. Through this journey, she has experienced so many modalities of health, and she is here today to share that healing is not a linear process, and that true wellness comes from building a daily life that supports healing through food, low toxin living, and you may have to step outside the bounds of traditional medicine to achieve true wellness. Erika, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, before we jump into your area of expertise, I always like to go further back, like much further back. What was it like growing up, little Erika? Where did you grow up? What were your parents like? And if there was some event or someone you could pinpoint as the reason you would ultimately become first a pretty ill person and then a champion and a podcaster and a health advocate, what or who would that be?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in LA. I lived here till I was about 6. And then I moved to Portland. And as soon as I turned 18, I moved to Arizona because I needed sunshine. Living in the clouds, the gloom and the rain was just not good for my health. Currently, I moved back to LA. And so, I had a pretty normal upbringing for the most part. I think I was always like a very type A, very driven person, which I think is like one of the things that definitely contributed to me eventually becoming sick. Like I had no off switch. I got a master's in architecture. I became a licensed architect. It is a tedious path of like doing 7.5 years of school and then doing an internship for 3 years, taking a bunch of licensing exams that are super stressful. And so I think that's kind of like really where I started to break down. When I was in grad school, I lived in an apartment that had mold. I didn't know it at the time, but I used to get these like chronic sinus infections, started developing these like weird food allergies. I became vegetarian at the time. And so I thought I was like being healthy, right? Like I think like back in the day, like a lot of people probably went on this journey of like thinking, oh, I'll eat less meat and I'll be healthier. But I wasn't a good vegetarian. I was just eating like more gluten and eating pizza and sandwiches, but they're vegetarian, so it was healthy, right? And it really wasn't. And I think I always had a sensitivity to gluten. So compound that with living in mold. I was a total caffeine addict and I was drinking Starbucks, which now I know is one of the moldiest coffees too. So I was just like double whamming myself and then like not sleeping, really pushing myself, like staying up late. And so I feel like that was just kind of like the start of my decay, right? And I just didn't know it yet. That was in my early 20s. And then I moved out of that apartment and I started feeling better. Like I didn't get sick as much, but I still had like a very sensitive immune system. And it wasn't until 2012 that I went on my third camping trip of my entire life, and
All right,
that
right. Before we get into that, I just
yeah.
want to think back. So if you think back to kind of parents and upbringing and where you are today, do you
Hmm.
see anything? I mean, it's obviously been a very complex route through
Hmm.
architecture into wellness, owning a marketing agency. Do you see any parallels like, oh, wow, this makes sense, whatever,
Hmm.
mom or dad was like that, or this environment was like such? Is there anything that you can tie that bridge together or bridge that together?
Yeah. I mean, not so much with like my upbringing. I had like a pretty stable, normal upbringing, which is good, right? Compared to everything
Yeah.
else I was dealing
Yep.
with. I think for me, it was always just like environmental issues, right? Like
Mm.
living in Portland, I know we lived in a house when I was young that had mold. And I'm pretty sure that that really started wearing down my immune system. I had psoriasis from a young age, all through my teens. And doctors, like, they would take me to every dermatologist and like nothing was like, they couldn't figure anything out. And they're just like, she needs sun. I was like, I do need sun. I was like, that's why I moved to sun.
That is
So
correct.
I feel like for me, it was more instead of like, some sort of like emotional thing that was going on with like my upbringing, it was more like
Mm.
environmental for me from a very young age. Like I've always been sensitive to my environment, and that was just kind of like the start of those triggers, right?
How about parents on this journey, right? Where it sounds like they were pretty supportive. Like,
Hmm.
okay, Erica's got this. Like, let's get her to her appointments. Let's figure out the next thing. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I mean, when I was young, I wasn't like too sick, right? It was more just like psoriasis, things like that. And once I actually started becoming chronically ill, I was on my own. So it was me
Okay.
and my husband that really were like, my husband now, we were like together then. We've been together for 15 years. So he was with me through the whole like serious part of the journey. Yeah.
Okay. So, your undergraduate degree was in architecture.
Hmm.
By the way, my undergraduate degree is in mechanical engineering,
Hmm.
and there are two degrees that I consider harder.
Hmm.
One is chemical engineering, and the other one is architecture, and that is in the order of difficulty. So I would be pulling what I would call all-nighters, and when I was
Yeah.
leaving, and we would do it in the architecture building at the University of Houston, and when I was leaving my all-nighter, the architect students, or at least I would surmise the good ones, were still there. You work
Yeah.
so much harder than every other degree. So
It's
I just like,
insane. The
and then
amount
you
of
don't make
all-nighters I pulled in my life, it's like I hate to admit it, but yeah, that
it,
was definitely my demise.
well, yeah, as biohackers now looking back, it was like, man, there had to be a better way, but
Yeah.
who knows? And then you work so hard, right? Harder than engineers, and then you get into a degree that doesn't pay that much, right? So I mean, I
Which is
know it's
why I
your path.
left it. One of the many
Yes.
reasons why I left it.
Well, so this kind of brings me a question. So you were self-employed as an architect. Now you own your own marketing agency, do your own health coaching. Are you unhireable?
My unhireable. No, so I didn't work as my own architect. I worked at an architecture firm. So
Oh,
I
okay,
worked in
okay.
architecture for a while, and then right around the time like the iPhone launched, that's when like a whole field of like UX design kind of launched, right? And
Mm,
so there was a lot of architects that were getting into that field. So I also had my undergrad's in architecture and graphic design and my master's in architecture. So what was cool about it is it was like the same kind of thinking, only your designs actually get built the way you want them, which does not happen in architecture, and you get paid a lot
that's
more
true.
and you can work from anywhere. So I was like, well, this sounds like a win. I'm going to go down this avenue. So for 15 years, I ran an agency with my husband that was focused on UX design, enterprise software, and then recently is when I shifted more into the health and wellness space and started our new agency. So I just like working for myself. I don't like having a boss. I like making
Yeah.
my own rules and working from where I want. That's what it
You,
comes
you,
down
you
to.
you might be unhireable, and that's
Yeah, I
okay. Like
probably am. At this
there's a
point,
lot of
for
people who
sure.
are.
I think it would
So
be really hard to work for someone at this point.
Yes, yeah, I could not agree more. All right, so let's get back to your journey.
Mhm.
Let's kind of walk us through how things. Okay, great. You've got some psoriasis. You're trying the vegetarian diet. Probably not the right way, if there is in
Mm-mm.
fact the right way.
Exactly.
Walk us through, what's going on next in this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, kind of like once I moved out of that moldy apartment in grad school, stopped doing a lot of the all-nighters, right? Because school was done, even though I was still up late studying for my exams. I started feeling better. And then it wasn't until around 2012 when I went on my third camping trip of my entire life. I am not an outdoorsy person. I do not hike. I am a city person, 100%. But went on this trip And, after that trip, I had these like weird bites on me. And like, I used to get bitten by bugs all the time. So I didn't really think anything of it. But I had like a really weird one on my hand. And I remember like trying to figure out what it was. It was kind of a bullseye, but not really thinking back to it.
Mm.
And after that trip, I got this weird flu. And I was never, ever the same after that trip. And
Mm.
it took me 2 years to figure out that it was Lyme disease. But in those 2 years, I was really rapidly decaying. Like, one of the first signs that I knew something was really wrong is I was drying my hair one morning and I literally had a bald spot that was like size of like a $50 just like on the top of my head out of nowhere. And I was like, why am I bald here? Like, what is going on? Why did I lose my hair? It turned out it was alopecia. So that was like my first signal that like, okay,
Mm.
something's really wrong. And at the time I was like seeing more like Western medicine, right? Maybe like a touch of functional medicine to them, but like still on the Western side of things, and they were no help at all. And
Mm.
so someone else had recommended like a more integrative doctor. And so that's what started me kind of down the path of like finding a different way of like healing and looking at things and working with different kinds of doctors. And so went to see
Well,
him.
just pause there. So, with this
Yeah.
traditional, about how long was that journey, and were they doing some kind of bog standard tests and maybe telling you that you're
Yeah.
fine,
Well,
or
they didn't
what did that
even
look like?
dig into Lyme. So the alopecia came probably like 6 weeks after the tick bite.
Mm.
So they had like no idea what was going on. I had been seeing all those doctors already because of like kind of the autoimmune stuff that I was already dealing with. But like I had all these food allergies. Now I know it was from like the mold and everything.
Mm.
Just like a really hyperactive immune system. And they're like, we've tested you for autoimmune conditions. We don't know what you have. Like, you have something, but we don't know what it is. And so it wasn't until I saw this doctor and he was just like, I'm willing to bet money you have celiac disease or like severely intolerant to gluten, and that's why you lost your hair. I was like,
Mm.
okay. I was like, let's do some testing.
Well,
Turns
one,
out
you
it
like the
was.
confidence, right? Like, the first thing is if they
Yeah.
just say it confidently, you're like, okay,
I was
good.
like,
Like,
no
I'm
one's ever
happy.
said that to me before. So I was like, all right. I was like, I'm willing to go gluten free and see what this is all about and see if it does help. And I went gluten free, but I didn't do gluten free right. It was kind of like my
Mm.
vegetarian stint, right? Like, I was like, let me just replace all the crappy food I'm eating with like gluten free versions of it, and I'm gonna magically feel better. Like, little did I know that was just kind of like the very first step of like changing my diet, and that it's gonna take a lot more than that. And
Mm.
so I went gluten free and I was just like, I don't feel better. I feel worse. I still feel spacey. Like, what's going on? My hair did start to grow back. So that was great. I was like, okay, I'm not bald anymore. And knock on wood, haven't had an issue since.
Awesome.
So cutting out gluten, I think, definitely did help that. But I just felt spacey all the time. So I went back to the doctor and I was just like, hey, my hair grew back, but now I feel like just spacey, tired, foggy. Like, what else is going on, right?
Yeah, so wanted to pause. And maybe you said it. I take notes and can get distracted sometimes. So did you have celiac?
I did.
Okay, so you
Yep.
tested positive for celiac. You get rid of gluten. So are you at the point where you're actually like when you go to restaurants, you have to ask if because I've been with people who have celiac and they're like, do you like if you serve gluten at all here? I really need to be really careful. Is that
Yeah,
how your
100%.
approach?
Yeah, like a microscopic crumb will make me sick for a week, and I get like all neuro issues even to this day. It's been
Okay,
14,
wow.
16 years. Yeah, it's a pain, but there's a lot more awareness now than when I first started, so that helps, but it's
Yeah.
still a pain
And
for sure.
there's like gluten-free restaurants that you can go to where
Yeah,
you
I've
don't even
even
have to
gotten
ask any
glutened at some
questions.
of those too, though. You'd be surprised.
Oh,
It's
wow.
like it's
That's
very,
frustrating.
very hit and miss. Yes, I make most of my own food these days, but it's okay. I do feel better. So anyways, getting back to the doctor. So I was just like, hey, I still feel foggy. I've gone gluten free. This isn't working for me. And he was just like, all right, you're probably gonna need to take your diet kind of to the next level. And I was like, all right, I'll do anything because I was just like really desperate to feel good and be able to like think and work again. And so I did the autoimmune paleo diet, which I think it was like a lot more popular back in the day. So keep in mind, this is like 2013 that I'm dealing with
Mm.
this. And it's a very, very strict elimination diet that basically cuts out anything that could be causing inflammation, and you add the foods back in one at a time. And I could not believe what a difference that made. Like, so much inflammation went down. I had so much more energy. I lost like all this like puffiness that I was dealing with. And I was like, wow, I was like, I cannot believe that like these foods are making such a difference. And it really kind of taught you like a good feedback system with your body, right? Like, it wasn't all just like if I eat something, I'm gonna get a stomach ache or like digestive issues. Like, some of it was like skin. Some things would make my psoriasis flare. Like, some things caused brain fog, joint pain. It was really, really interesting to see like what foods were working for my body and what foods weren't, and kind of slowly rebuilding my diet. So that was like the first big like aha moment that I was like, wow, what we eat really does matter. And I've I've been poisoning myself thinking I was healthy, but like not eating healthy at all, right? And like who knows how many issues I was causing for myself.
So that's really interesting, right? Because you actually had, in some sense, an advantage over other people because of celiac, meaning you
Hmm.
understood that the things you put in your mouth really could have a dramatic
Hmm.
impact on you, and yet still, kind of global diet, it didn't register that global diet really could also have a dramatic impact until you try this. It was a autoimmune paleo diet.
Paleo.
Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
autoimmune paleo protocol, I think is the official name, AIP. It's not as
Mm.
popular anymore. I feel like people have kind of evolved from it, but I think it's still like a really useful tool, especially if someone's dealing with like a lot of food allergies and trying to figure out like what's going on and what foods work for their body, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, very good. Okay. Yeah. It's interesting because you think about the rest of the population who doesn't even have this kind of, oh, when I get rid of this one, who haven't come to the recognition that when they get rid of this one thing, it dramatically it improves how they feel. And still, it's hard to process like what you put in your mouth really is
Hmm.
everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't think people realize like what a difference it makes, right? It's like you don't think that it's going to affect you cognitively or like fatigue wise, but there's a lot of foods that do just kind of slow you down, right? In different ways. So I think it's a critical piece.
In your interview with the Beyond Tomorrow podcast, you
Hmm.
highlighted that Texas is a place where you can get Lyme disease.
Hmm.
First, why you got to call us out like that? I'm in Texas.
Sorry.
Like,
There's a
yeah,
lot
you
of
got to
things
call
that
us
you can
out.
get there.
And then second, I was like, is there actually a concept that Texas doesn't have Lyme disease? Is that something that's kind of going around and you are debunking it, or you are
I
just throwing it
mean,
under the bus?
I think it's like people realize think that there's places that they can't get Lyme or that there's like no ticks there. And the reality is that ticks have been found everywhere except for Antarctica. And so there's no control over like birds migrating and bringing ticks around, like rodents moving around. There's like just ticks everywhere, and every area has different sorts of diseases that are more prevalent. So, for a long time, people were like, oh, there's no Lyme in California. But California is one of the highest states, almost as bad as the East Coast and the Midwest in some areas, especially Northern
Hmm.
California along the coastal areas. It's super endemic. And then in Texas, you have like a whole other host of issues. You have the alpha gal to like look out for, which comes from a Lone Star tick. And so the
Oh,
alpha gal
wow.
syndrome makes you allergic to red meat. And it's not only just red
I've heard
meat,
of
it's
that.
all
Yep.
mammal products. And I think I have it rough with celiac disease that like eating out like a crumb of food will make me sick, right? Like, sure, I'll feel bad for a week. I'll get over it. Life goes on. With alpha gal, it's like a whole other level. Like they can go into an anaphylactic reaction just from like a byproduct of a mammal food. Like, for example, like Aquafina water filters their water through bone shards. That's enough to set off an alpha gal reaction. I've heard like
Wow.
toilet paper, things that have carrageenan in them. Like, so it's like the level of like hyper vigilance that you need to have when you have alpha gal is just sounds like it's a whole other level. And so it's just so scary that from a tick bite that can happen, right? And like something that you're not even aware that could have happened to you.
Well, you just threw us under the bus again.
I
That's
know,
all right.
sorry. I mean,
The truth needs
you
to
gotta
be
tell your
out there.
people. You gotta keep your people safe.
I do have to share a story. I was listening to a podcast with my kids, and they started talking about alpha gal, but it was subtle. So it came up. I was like, yeah, she was suddenly allergic to meat, right? And my son in the back seat is like, oh yeah, she got bit by a tick. And then I was like, no, that's not true. Like literally, my son has what I call Allen facts. Like that, he gets stuff, and then the podcast went on to say, in fact, that he was absolutely right. Like
Mhm.
this was a thing caused by a tick bite,
Yeah,
which is terrifying. Good thing you didn't have that. So
thank God.
we're all very happy to that.
Yes.
When you think back about their journey, about your journey, right? Like I know a lot of people, in the biohacking space, in the functional medicine space, have this understanding that there are ways, and there's value to traditional medicine, right?
Mhm.
But there's also places that it fails you. Was there any kind of moment you're like, that system has just absolutely failed me, or were you kind of playing in both worlds, and it was kind of this evolution to where you potentially are now?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was already starting to see that it was failing me, and that was why I was seeing the more integrative doctor. And then 2 years after seeing this doctor is when I found out that I actually had Lyme disease, and that was what was causing all my issues after 2 years of just like decaying, basically being bedridden. Like there were times I couldn't even walk up my stairs to go to bed. And like noise canceling
Mhm.
headphones on, blackout curtains. Like I was just like becoming like a shell of myself. And I went to my more Western doctor, and I was just like, hey, I was like, I just did some testing and I have Lyme disease. And she was like so mad that I would even suggest that I had Lyme. Like she definitely like was like one of those doctors that like doesn't really believe in Lyme, especially chronic Lyme. And she was just like, you don't have Lyme. I was like, then what do I have? I've been seeing you for multiple years now, complaining about these issues. You've done testing on me. She's like, I don't know, you have some sort of autoimmune disease I just haven't tested you for. I was like, then test me for everything. I was like, test me for everything that you think it is, and let's see if you have a different answer. And she tested me for all this stuff. Nothing came up positive other than the ones that I already knew about. And so I was just like, you can't disprove this. I have a positive test for Lyme. You have negative tests for everything that you think it is. I'm gonna go down the Lyme route because it's
Wow.
the only answer that I have. And so, once she was just like, "Oh, you're gonna see this doctor that's here in the Bay Area, and he's just gonna pump you with a bunch of IV antibiotics." I was like, "No," because I was like, "There's different ways to treat Lyme," and I got better without doing any antibiotics. So it was just like, once I got better, I actually wrote her a letter and told her that she was doing a disservice to people and to like really listen to people. And like when someone comes to
Mhm.
them with like a diagnosis, especially something like Lyme disease that is so endemic, like not to shut them down, that it is a real disease and that there's other ways to treat it without going through this like Western route that she had in her mind was the only way.
Wow, that is really like the clash of traditional medicine
Hmm.
that you really hope and I think she was trying her best, right? I think you would agree with that. That I kind of share that a lot of people go to to traditional medicine and they believe that the doctor is looking for the root cause, and in so many cases they're not really looking for the root cause. Like even if she gets down to the autoimmune disease, what is she going to prescribe versus what ultimately happened, right? These are very different things. But wow, what a pinnacle, a disappointing moment. Okay, so then like you start not trying, but you start addressing Lyme disease. What does that process look like?
Yeah, so once I finally found out I had Lyme, it took a minute to take it in. I was just like, how did I get this like outdoorsy person's disease? I'm a city girl.
You got to admit you were a little proud that you had this
I was
outdoorsy.
like, really? Out of the three times I went outside, like this is what I get. Like outside in the woods, I was like, this is crazy. But it's kind of like daunting at first because you're like, great, I just got diagnosed with an incurable disease. Like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, am I just gonna like decay and like feel worse and worse? And it's kind of intense to it's good because you have an answer. You're like, okay, I'm not crazy. There is something wrong with me because for 2 years I couldn't figure out what it was, right? But at the same time, you're just like, great, now I have this incurable disease. Like, now what do I do? And so at that point, I was like really jaded by Western medicine. I was like, I'm not going to do anything in that realm. I'm going to do everything in the more kind of like holistic, functional kind of route. And like the weirder, the better almost for a while. Like I was like, if I'm going to do this, I want to try some weird stuff and like just see what happens and see if it helps, right? Because I'm like, everything else that I've been doing hasn't helped. So let's just try something different. And so, like, one of the very first treatments I did, which, like, to this day just sounds like a crazy treatment, but I couldn't believe how much it helped. But I worked with this herbalist and he used like homeopathics and different herbs. And he would do kind of like a biofeedback system on you to like pick up frequencies, right? So like every living thing has a frequency. And so the idea was he was able to pick up like what's going on in your body and then make you these like herbal tinctures that he imprinted the frequencies into. And I could not believe, like, I was like, there's no way this is gonna work. I'm taking 10 drops 3 times a day. Like, but let's try it. It's not invasive, it's not expensive. Like, maybe something will happen. It made such a huge difference. Even to this day, I see him like once a year, every like 6 months, just because I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm getting a little run down. Maybe I like picked up some bug bites like on a like vacation. Who knows like what I picked up, right? Like let's just kind of clear things out. And it works so well. Like it's just crazy, right? So it was just like that was like one of the first weird things. I was like, okay, well that was weird. And that worked and made a difference. I was like, what other weird stuff can I do and like get into? So like I was like, I'm gonna make this fun. I mean, obviously I did some treatments that like weren't fun or like weren't as enjoyable or out there, like doing like a lot of IVs and herbals. But then like, sometimes those things help too. Like ozone was a really big thing for me that really makes a difference. Like even to this day, I still do like a maintenance ozone IV like every quarter, like a 10 pass and things like that, because it really just helps kind of reset my immune system a little bit, give me some energy, and keep me
And
healthy.
that's a they pull your blood out, ozonate it, put it back in the
Yeah, and the 10
situation.
pass
Yeah,
does it like 10 times, so it's superhuman. Makes you superhuman.
that's
At least
awesome.
I like to feel like I am afterwards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're in LA, so you've probably had access to that before. Even us here in Houston have
Yeah.
have had access. All right. So ozone frequency, water, ozone. Kind of what else did you? What other
Yeah, I
things
did
did
a
you
lot of
try? And
herbals. Herbals were really helpful for Lyme. I did a treatment. It's funny, like now it's starting to become a little bit more popular. It's kind of like the TPE, the therapeutic plasma exchange. I did something called apheresis, also called like plasmapheresis. So it doesn't give you donor plasma like the TPE does, but it basically takes everything out, separates your plasma, blood, and then cleans it all out and puts it back in. So I did two of those. I probably would have done more, but I didn't have a port, so I was doing it through my veins, and it's pretty aggressive on your veins.
mm,
But it did feel like that made a really big difference. I had super high heavy metals, super high mold, so I had to address like doing the detoxes and like chelation for that. So like a lot of sauna therapy, like colonics to help support like detox pathways while I was doing that. And then the thing that finally got me better that was like super experimental was I did stem cells using my own stem cells. And, I had gotten to a point after treating Lyme for about 2 years, like 2.5 years, and I was just like, I kind of plateaued. I was like, okay, I'm doing all these things, I'm spending all this money on all these treatments, and like, doesn't feel like it's moving the needle like it used to. Like before, it's like each round of treatments would like move me up a little bit. And I was like, I just kind of feel plateaued. And I was like, I feel like I need to do something to just kind of like reset my immune system, reset my body. And my doctor was like, okay, you can either go do like hyperthermia in Germany, where like they put you into this like extreme fever to like kill whatever bugs are still left. And I
mm,
was like,
mm,
I don't feel like I need to kill more bugs. I feel like I need to fix my immune system. So I was like, I'm going to do the
yeah.
stem cells because I feel like that's going to do it better. So they use my own stem cells for my own fat.
So what did you consider as you're kind of looking at the landscape of stem cells? You go out of the country
Yeah.
and get exogenously grown. Like what are the things that you're looking at as you're
Yeah.
considering
So
stem
this was
cells?
back in 2016. So there wasn't a lot of options back then for
Hmm.
stem cells. This was like almost 10 years ago. My gosh, it's been a while. So there was one clinic that did them specifically for Lyme disease and had a lot of success. So they were in
Okay.
Germany. So they actually had just opened a clinic up in LA, but they were doing most of their treatments in Germany. So I ended up flying to Germany to do the treatment. So they harvested them from my own fat and then processed them and then gave them back. So I really wanted to do my own. There wasn't a lot of options to do like the exogenous ones. And also now I hear more and more about this that like people like feel relief for like 6 months and then it kind of goes away. It's not your own DNA. Like your body kind of just
Mm.
flags it as like, I don't really know what this is. Let's just clear it out. And so like people are having to get them like every 6 months to kind of keep up that good feeling from it versus the ones when you use your own. It feels like there's a little bit more longevity to it.
And those were grown exogenously, right?
You don't
Or
grow them, so
no, they
they just pull them out and then extract the
spin them
stem
down.
cells and then put them back in. Yeah.
Do they take a lot of fat, or are you kind of getting a free liposuction as you're going, or
Yeah,
what does that look
like
like?
100 cc's. I was like, feel free to take a little more.
If you just throw
And
it
then when
away.
they're doing it because you're awake for it, I was like, you know what? I'm like, you can just take as much as you need and let's get this over with.
Yeah, let's get there.
I was like, maybe I don't care so much anymore.
Well, I recently with Acorn, it may be Acorn Therapeutics or whatever. They pull hair, and they're storing, banking your stem cells from your hair because your hair follicles have stem cells, and right, so you have kind of decreasing level of pain. Right, one way is to actually pull it out of your hip bone. Then the next one is to pull it out of body fat. Right, and then the next is like just to yank out some hairs, and so.
Wow, that's
I
come a
have
long
stem
way.
cells stored from hair. All right,
That's
so they
cool.
take it, they spin it down. How much
Yeah.
are they injecting at this point? When
Um,
you're ready for it?
I don't
Do you remember?
remember. I
Like
have a
one
picture. I have a
was it
picture.
like one vial? Was it a
Yeah, it's like one
multiple?
big vial, like
Okay,
one, yeah, probably like 100 cc's or so, probably.
okay,
Yeah, and then they
and
give it back to
that
me
just
via
goes
IV.
into your IV. Okay, yeah. And then what was your reaction at that? Was there kind of immediate reaction other than I don't want to get a liposuction surgery because that was not fun?
I ended up having to do those down the road anyways. I'll get into that later.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, we'll get to that.
Yeah, so at the time, the first week you get this like wave of just like anti-inflammatory like relief and it was like really crazy. And so the doctor that did it, he was just like, yeah, the first week it's almost like the stem cells are kind of going in, scanning what they need to work on, taking inventory. He's like, you get like a really big anti-inflammatory like reaction to it. And I would just like I remember like the next day I was like, I feel so good. Like my brain fog is gone. I feel so good. I was like, if this is what I'm gonna get to, I'm like gonna be so happy, right? Because it's like at the
Yeah.
time I still had like so many Lyme symptoms. And so that week kind of crashes. He's like, after a week, you're going to have a crash. And he's like, the first 100 days are pretty rough, right? Because it's like you're going through like a lot of healing, a lot of inflammation. And so the first 100 days were like not the most fun, right? Like you feel tired, you like have a lot of symptoms. There was like some symptoms that started going away, like a lot of inflammation. Like I remember like around 3 weeks, I was like, I can move my hands and they don't hurt. Like for the first time in like 6, 7 years, I was just like, and I just like kept moving my fingers. I was like, this is amazing. And then some of the more like neurological stuff took longer, right? So my brain fog lifted at like week 12. It was like so crazy. It was like one day I just had like mental clarity and I was like, wow, I was like, I can think really clear. I was like, but I'm not gonna get too excited because I've had these like random days here where I had like no brain fog, and then it just like it stuck around. I was like, oh my god, my brain fog is finally clear because that was like my number one annoying symptom. And then the neuro stuff took like 10 months, and I remember. Like I was so sensitive to light. I used to have sunglasses on all the time. Like I couldn't go outside without sunglasses on. And I just remember like being outside and I was like, I don't have sunglasses on. I was like, that's weird. And then I was like, why am I not feeling weird without sunglasses? And then I like just kept trying it and I was like, I barely even wear sunglasses outside anymore because I'm just like my eyes, like the nerves or something with the eyes just totally healed for that. So like just little things like that like start to go away. And then yeah, so pretty much like all my Lyme symptoms went away. It took about 10 months for it to like fully kind of heal and take place. So those all went away, but then something weird happened with my stem cells. So they fixed the Lyme and like all the issues I was having, but I started gaining a lot of weight. So about 10, 12 weeks after my stem cell therapy, I started gaining like 5 pounds of weight a month, like no matter what. And it was crazy because I was like, I'm finally working out again. My diet
Oh
is
yeah,
still
yeah.
super
All the good
clean.
stuff is happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I can finally move my body and like work out. I was like, why am I getting bigger? And I was like, there's definitely like a hormonal component because it was like coming on with my cycle and like it just wasn't going away. And I was like, I feel like I have water retention that's like turning to fat. And this started a whole new journey of like going to all the doctors. But I was like, it's gonna be better this time because I have the right doctors. Like I know the right kind of doctors to go see. It's not gonna be like my Lyme journey. But it did. It took 8 years of just struggling with like weight gain, water retention, all sorts of things. And then early last year, I was finally diagnosed with lipedema as the cause of that. So after Lyme, I thought I was like in the clear, and then it was like another 8 years of torment. But at least my brain worked, so that was good, and I could work out. It was just frustrating because I was like, now I'm doing everything right. My body is just like, you know, doing something that it shouldn't be doing, only around something different. So it was really
So
frustrating.
describe what is lipedema, right?
Yeah.
And you know you're just experiencing weight gain. Is it localized somewhere? Like
Mhm.
what was that experience
Yeah,
and what is it?
so lipedema is a genetic condition. It affects 1 in 9 women. So tons of women have it. They just don't know. This is another thing like Lyme, right? Like you go to your doctor and they don't know how to diagnose it or what it is. And so what happens is it's a fibrotic fat disorder that kind of the fat gets trapped in your connective tissue and your fascia. So basically, it starts by being kind of like leaky lymphatic vessels that leak fluid into your interstitial space, and your body creates this like fibrotic fat to kind of encapsulate it. So you gain weight. It doesn't respond to diet and exercise at all. It's like very lumpy, very fibrotic. Nothing stops it other than having surgery, unfortunately, that they found. You can do like conservative methods like wear compression, get lymphatic drainage, but it's not going to stop the disease progression. It just kind of like helps with symptoms, right? And so there's different stages. There's stage 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then you can have different types. So you can have it just in your thighs, you can have it in your full legs, you can have it just in your upper arms or full arms, and then also like the torso area. So some women just get it in like one area and stay at like stage 1 and 2 their whole life and kind of manage. Some women get it everywhere. Some women get up to like stage 3 and 4. And once you get there, you start having like more compromised lymphatic issues. So I was like stage 2. So I had it everywhere. I had it in my full legs, my full arms. I don't have it anymore because I've had surgery, but I had this like weird cuffing that would happen. So it doesn't affect your hands and feet, but you'll get cuffing at your wrists and your
Oh
ankles
wow.
where it just kind
Yeah.
of stops. And so, yeah, the only treatment for it is to do liposuction, like a lymph sparing liposuction that just kind of gets it out. And that for some reason kind of stops the disease progression and kind of
Oh,
resets
so
it.
so like one treatment of liposuction actually stops further
Mhm.
well, that's
Yeah, and it's kind of
interesting.
interesting because like if you so like I experience this and a lot of women experience this, like if you start treating one area, you just haven't like you have to kind of treat all the areas to get it to fully stop, because what will happen
Uh-huh.
is if you treat your legs, then your arms might start getting bigger until you like treat your arms. So it's kind of like whack-a-mole until you treat everything. So I had 4 surgeries last year just to like do them one right after another to get it
Wow.
to stop. Yeah. But it's been
Wow.
life changing since then. So like since having the surgeries, Like it's knock on wood again, right? Like completely has kind of reset that for me and stopped that. And it was like, I was starting to develop almost like borderline like an eating disorder because I would be like, okay, well, if I don't eat, like I'll maybe like be a pound lighter, but
Starve
it's
it
not gonna
out.
stop. Yeah, it's like not gonna
Yeah.
stop the disease, right? And it was just like, I was like, great, I fixed one thing with Lyme, and now I have this. No one could figure out what it was. I went to so many doctors. I was like, some doctors were like so mean. I remember like one doctor, she was like, I think you're just having a Barbie moment. You look fine. And I was like, I'm like struggling and like in tears like every other week, like wondering what's happening to my body. I work out every day. I eat so clean. I skip meals, which, that can cause weight gain too. That's a whole other topic. But, I was like doing everything right as much as I could. So I don't know what the mechanism was that the stem cells triggered it, if it just happened to be coincidence because I was like entering kind of like the start of perimenopause, or if there's a connection. One thing that I think is my theory that happened is for some reason a lot of people with Lyme that did stem cells were having some mast cell activation issues afterwards, and I didn't have really like any classic mast cell issues. I was like, oh, I guess I'm good on that, but there's a lot of research recently that lipedema does have a mast cell component, and it actually does make your lymphatic vessels more porous and more leaky, which is kind of like the start of lipedema. So I wonder if for me, that was the way the mast cell activation presented. So,
Hey, super quick break from the podcast. Hopefully you're loving it. This is a way you can support the podcast and take advantage of a great offer. We're offering 50% off of one of our MCT bottles. MCT is an amazing oil. Add the ESS 60 molecule to it. It's even more amazing. All you got to do is leave a review on iTunes, send us a notification that you've left that review. We'll get you a coupon code that'll get you 50% off of our MCT oil and free shipping. Back to the podcast.
So since stem cell, no real incidences of Lyme or okay, so that's fantastic. You
yeah.
haven't got, if that happened, would you hesitate going back for more stem cells given your lipedema experience?
I mean, I want to think that if for some reason I got bitten by a tick again and got Lyme again, I would know sooner and I would catch it sooner, right? And I
Yep.
would like, if you catch it early and take antibiotics and do treatments right away, you can usually stop it. I don't think that I would get to the point that I was so chronically ill and damaged that I would need stem cells again, but I would get stem cells again if I need to. Like it saved my life, right? And I
Yeah.
hope at this point, like the lipedema is under control. I'm like doing other measures like lymphatic drainage. I'm microdosing a GLP-1 that really helps with like inflammation, using different peptides. And so like all those things between that and the surgery have like really just stabilized everything, that I feel like I'm hopefully in a better place now if those things happen that I need that again, right?
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So stem cell involved a flight to Germany, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that was some of it. So have you kind of accumulated how much money you ended up spending on all of this healthcare? Because
So
it's
much.
not, yeah, so much.
So much, so much between all the years. I mean, I've been on a health journey since 2012, so almost 13 years now, right? And it's like, and the lipedema one, I was like, oh, great, I finally have a disease that my insurance will pay for. And I'm like still fighting with my health insurance company to pay for that too. So paid for my surgeries out of pocket, trying to get reimbursed. And it's like for Lyme disease, nothing was reimbursed. Stem cells were obviously out of pocket. So I got a lot of air miles, got a lot of hotel points. And so,
A lot of
like,
education.
yeah, so when I was like paying for things, I was just like, this is just a future trip when you get better. And so now I'm finally enjoying my air mile accumulation. I got a lot of them. So
So, if somebody's out there and I think you seemed intuitively to know that it felt like bloating that was turning into fat, right? Like you described it, that you kind of knew that. If somebody might be kind of facing lipedema, what is that? What you would describe as like, hey, if you feel this sensation, you should look for lipedema. And then how do you is it a genetic test that you do to understand that
it's
you
not a
have
genetic
a
test because they don't know
proclivity?
exactly what genes cause it. They just know it is a hereditary genetic issue. So usually it's a clinical diagnosis. So first of all, if you have weight gain that's unproportioned, right? So a lot of times women will have like for me, even when I was younger, I could see that I had it, right? Even before Lyme, I was like, I could see I had it in my thighs. I always had thick legs, didn't really have kneecaps, but I think it was just localized in my thighs, like stage one. Like no matter how much I worked out, I was just like, I just have strong thighs. Like I was just like, now I know I didn't, right? So it's unproportionate. I had a very small waist and I had like big legs. So that's like number one sign if you have unproportionate weight. Also the texture, it can look like cellulite, but it's not. You can see almost like little rice grains. So if you do a pinch test on your leg, you can see the texture of the fat. And if it's like granular rice grain like, then that's a like true sign that it's lipedema. If you
Mm.
start getting the cuffing, if it doesn't respond to diet and exercise, if you feel some relief from like a lymphatic drainage massage, that can be another sign, right? So usually it's a clinical diagnosis if you see someone that's either like a vascular surgeon or like a lipedema specialist, someone even that specializes in lymphedema, which is a different condition, but they're familiar with lipedema. Those are
Mhm.
good avenues to go if you suspect you might have it.
So, okay, great. Thanks for sharing that because
Mhm.
some people may be struggling, or may like you said, maybe if you had that information earlier, kind of based on your awareness in high school,
Mhm.
then you could have been pursuing lymphatic
Yeah.
drainage. By the way, lymphatic drainage massages are the best, right? Like, am I right? Like, they're just an absolute. They're not deep tissue. They're absolute. Like,
I get one once a
couldn't
week. I'm just like, it's like the
couldn't.
best.
So, so, so ironic. You're lucky that you must have a lymphatic massage. Like, so you got to look at the bright side, right? Because typically when I go to the masseuse, it's because I'm having some muscle problem,
Yeah,
and
those are
it's
painful.
elbows, right, and tears.
Yes.
So I have had absolute joy of a lymphatic massage once.
Mhm.
So you've been through so much physically, mentally, emotionally with chronic illnesses. Talk a little bit about the kind of the whole emotional side, like where you land and good days and bad days, and what did that look like going through this journey?
Yeah, I mean, during Lyme, it was dark. Like, for sure, I had,
Mhm.
like, a lot of dark days. There was, like, days that I was like, "If I don't wake up tomorrow, I'm, like, okay with that, because like, this is miserable, this is not living." I mean, obviously, I'm very glad I'm still here because I'm doing a lot of amazing things now, so I wanna make sure that people have that hope, like, when you're in it, like, you're gonna have dark days like that, and a lot of times it's, like, the bugs even talking, right? It's like you're having die-off or you're having, like you're not thinking clearly because 'cause you've got all these microbes in you, so, like, I feel like that can really hijack your thoughts and your thought processes. Like even things like Bartonella can cause a lot of like anger and rage and like,
Things like
paranoia
what?
even. Bartonella, which is a tick co-infection. So a lot of times when you
Okay.
get bit by a tick, you don't just get Lyme, you get like 20 plus other up to like 20 plus other diseases that you can get at the same time that could be just as bad as Lyme, right? And like they all have their own host of symptoms and issues. So that's why it's such a complex condition, right? And it's really should more be referred to as like tick-borne disease versus Lyme disease because it really is a variety of infections at the same time. Um, but like you just have to kind of like keep your eye on the prize, right? Like trust that you're eventually going to get better, trust that your body is going to know like how to heal eventually and giving it those tools. I think doing like emotional healing techniques is super important too. Like you can't just be focused on like killing, right? And I think that's what happens with a lot of people with Lyme is like you're so focused on just killing Lyme, you forget diet, you forget detox, you forget like emotional health and well-being and all these other pieces of the puzzle that I think are just as important. Like at a certain point, kind of like what I discovered on my journey, like I was like, I killed enough. Like I need to do something else to like modulate my immune system and work on some other things. Tools for like stress relief, nervous system, like resetting, things like that. Like I learned like when I right after I got my stem cells, I started doing a lot of like biofeedback, which was like really kind of a game changer for me. Like I said, I'm very type A, very high strung. I do a lot, but like it's such a game changer, like learning to use your breath to kind of regulate, knowing when to stop, like when you're tired. Like in the past, I would just push through and like just knowing my limits. And like it's crazy because like I have like my aura ring and like sometimes I'm just like sitting there, I'm like, I've had such a crazy, stressful day. And then it's like, you've had like 4 hours of restorative time today. I'm like, okay, well, I really like what I'm doing. So I'm enjoying my work. I just have these like snippets of like stress, but like integrating those tools, right? Like taking a break, doing some breathing. Like when I'm not like insanely busy, I like to do like little stints of like time in my hyperbaric. So that really gives me just like a timeout just to like restore myself at the end of the day or like in the middle of the day when I just need like a timeout, things like that, like building that in so I'm not just wearing myself to the ground, right?
So it's interesting because you did talk about, hey, it's not just a focus on killing, and you said that earlier in the podcast that you knew that this temperature therapy was not right for you because that was more about killing and that you needed immune support. By the way, have you? I think I don't know if it was a Netflix special or I saw some video of somebody go through that. Have you seen somebody go through that, like where
Yeah,
they
it's
elevate your
intense.
temperature?
Yeah, it's
It
intense. It looks
doesn't look
horrible. I was
pleasant.
like, I don't think this looks fun.
Yeah, no, like I'd rather them do what I will soon learn to be an uncomfortable liposuction
Yes.
to get the stem cells, and then in your head at the time it's just an injection, but even
Yeah.
with the liposuction it becomes still better than because it's like a 4 hour process or something. Like the guy gets out of this heated blanket and he's like, all you want to do is cool down, like get in cold water, cold showers. Like, no, you have to sit there and cool down naturally. Yeah, that didn't look good. But you mentioned biofeedback. What kinds of biofeedback were you messing around with?
Yeah, so I did a lot of heart rate variability,
Mm.
which for me was like a really big game changer. So, like, it was interesting because like one of the first things that she did was like kind of test you, like what things are your triggers, right? Like, do you hold your breath? Do you like get sweaty? Do you like clench your muscles? And it was funny because she like played all these things that like should be stressful. And like with the first one was like all these sirens and city sounds, and I was like completely at peace. I was like, I've lived in LA like most of my life. I'm like, this doesn't stress me out. But the
Yeah.
things that stressed me out was like something where like something wasn't aligned or just like these like really weird
So
things that like
maybe a little
yeah, a little
OCD
OCD,
kind of
right? And
stuff.
I was like, I can't believe those are like my stressors and like everything else is just like whatever. So it's kind of interesting. But with those things, like showing you those images, she found like what sorts of things are your triggers and stressors, and then where in your body you hold that stress. So for me, it was like hold my breath. Like I don't
Mm.
breathe when I do those things. So doing the heart rate variability, learning to use my breath, learning what my ideal like breath resonance was, like how long do I breathe out and hold it in? Do I need a pause at the top? And so like I use that tool, like I can use it anytime, right? Like if I'm feeling stressed out, I can just spend 30 seconds, 60 seconds, do that breathing exercise, and it just regulates your nervous system so much and just kind of brings you back. And you're like, okay, I can like get back to what I'm doing instead of like almost like hyperventilating yourself or like holding your breath and like not breathing and stressing your body out even more, right? So it's like it's cool because you can just do it anywhere. Like no one even knows you're doing it, right? Like you can just do it anytime.
They don't even know that you're under any sort of stress. One of the things that you kind of described was like stress and the framing, right? How important framing stress is. That something you learned, or is that something in this whole process? And maybe talk a little bit about how framing stress has an impact.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone has to kind of realize like what their stressors are, right? Like I said, like it was interesting to learn what mine were and like what mine
And
weren't.
what they weren't like.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
like, okay. I was like, and even like when I hear sirens when I'm walking around, I'm like, it doesn't phase me. I'm like, am I weird like for this? But I'm just like, it's just not a stressor to me, I guess, just because I'm used to it. I don't know if that's a good thing, right? But it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I think just like identifying what those things are for you, right? And like one thing I'll go back to kind of like talking about like the diet thing too. One thing that I really liked about doing the elimination diet and having so much awareness with your body was like you really paid attention when you ate something, like how it affected you, whether it was like
Mhm.
neurological or like joint pain or digestive or like whatever it was. Did it make you tired? And you really started to get this like good biofeedback system with your body that I feel like having that skill you can use in everything, right? Like you're like, does this situation make me stressful? When I hang out with this person, like, do they drain me? Are they like, stressful to me that it's like ramping up my nervous system and like wearing me out? So like you start to notice things, and like sometimes like my project manager like at work, sometimes I'll be on a call, I'm just like I'll be like, this is making my head hurt. She's like, let's just do this later. I'm just like, that's like my cue to just be like, I
Yeah.
can't, this is like too much for me right now. I can't handle this. And I'm like, and she's really good at like just being like, okay, I don't want to stress you out anymore. Like, let's do this like tomorrow morning when your head's clear again and we can dive into it. So like recognizing what those things are and maybe like having people that are close to you kind of be aware of like when you get to a certain like heightened state, just being like, hey, let's table this and do this in a little bit instead of just pushing through and like stressing yourself out more, right?
Was that a particular type of biofeedback, or like the practitioner? Like if
Yeah,
somebody
we
were
use
looking
the,
for somebody.
the heart math, HRV.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Heart math, right? MATH or MAP? I can't remember.
MATH, I think.
I think it is MATH.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That sounds absolutely
Yeah.
fascinating.
It's an easy one too. Like, they have like you can use it on your phone app. I think it has like a little thing that you like clip to your ear and it measures everything, and then you do like these different exercises. So yeah, it's an easy one to do. And then another thing that I recently started using that makes a huge difference as well is pulsetto. So doing like the vagus nerve
Mm.
training and resetting. So, I as like a blogger and like influencer and stuff, I get to try a lot of different toys. Like being at the biohacking conference, like it's like a playground, right? Like to just kind of like try all these things out and you're like, does this really work? Is this gimmicky? Like, I don't believe this can work. But literally in 4 minutes, you wear it around your neck. And in 4 minutes, I cannot believe like what a like amazing shift you have in just like your stress and how you feel. And it's something like you can even still be on your computer while you're doing it. I try to give myself those 4 minutes just to like close my eyes and take a time out. I'm like, it's 4 minutes. I can do this, right? And like the amount of just shift in your stress and like kind of frenziness almost that you're feeling when you do it, I couldn't believe like what a difference that makes. And there's different tools out there that do kind of the same thing. So finding one that like works for you, right? But I think vagus nerve like stimulation is really good. Doing like some sort of like brain retraining, like either DNRS or primal trust, things like that can be really powerful, especially if you're still in like the throes of illness and you need to kind of get out of that sick state and cycle. Those can be really effective tools too.
So you've been through so much, and ostensibly people who are listening to this maybe on a similar journey in the middle of it, in the the thick mud of it. What kind of picture would you paint as like physically, mentally, and emotionally being on the other side of these chronic illnesses?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like my brain's not inflamed, so I can be much more rational and think much more clearly. I think also when you're not in pain and sick, you can open your life up to do like other things, right? Like even for example, like once I got better from Lyme and then I was like all of a sudden like in this lipedema journey, like I was just saying, I was like, I feel like I'm on a treadmill and I'm gonna get flung across the room. Like I can't keep up. I don't know what's going on. Spent like countless hours like Googling and like trying to find out like what it was, like going to doctor's appointments. And like once that was behind me, I feel like I said earlier this year, I was like, this is the first time in nearly like 13, 15 years that I'm not like preoccupied with my health the way I have been. And it like opens up so much time for me to do things. And like I launched like a new company this year and I was just like, I don't think I would have been in the right headspace to do that last year when I was so frenzied in my health and like figuring out what was going on and going through these surgeries and stuff. So it's like when you get kind of past that and make room for things, I feel like there's like a lot that you can explore and do and like be passionate about because you have the mental space for it again, right?
So you touched on this in the beginning, but this is a question I had from the beginning, actually. Do
Mhm.
you think that the characteristics that drive you to be an entrepreneur, to be unhirable, are some of the same characteristics that allowed you to push through and ultimately kind of solve your health challenges?
For sure. I mean, I can be a nightmare for sure. I do not give up. Like once I have my eye on
And
a
also,
plan.
as you're folding that, the answer to that question, fold in like what advice would you give, right? So, what
Yeah,
characteristics do you have? You work with people who don't necessarily have
yeah.
that type A personality. What advice would you give
For
people out
sure.
there?
Well, first of all, I want to say I feel like a lot of people that I talk to and work with that are sick are type A's, right? Like we tend to be the ones that like don't listen to ourselves and kind of push through. Like not always. Obviously, there's going to be people out there that got sick, unfortunately, that aren't. But I do see that as a trend. So, if you are that type of person, like definitely make time to slow down. I know I had to, and like you feel like you're wasting time by slowing down and you're just like, no, I have to do everything. I have to push through. But you actually end up being so much more productive if you slow down and build in that time for yourself to stay healthy. It's kind of like putting your mask on first, right? Like you have to take care of yourself in order to like be productive and do things. And that's something I didn't do before. I would just push through. And so, that's for the type A's out there. And then for the other people that are not such pushers, right? Like, you know, I don't I don't have like full advice because I don't understand what it's like to fully be that kind of person and like what works for them. But I would just say like, be proactive, right? Like a lot of times you can just be like, I'm just gonna do what my doctor says, I'm gonna do what someone tells me, but like really kind of like trust your own intuition and be proactive about yourself. Like listen to your body, like if something feels right and like do more of that. If something's like my doctor says I should do this, I'm doing it because they said so, but like it doesn't feel good, like don't do it, right? Like find something else that feels good. And granted, like you're gonna go through ugly days with Lyme too, right? You get a lot of die-offs. I'm not saying like if you have die-off, like quit your treatment. Like I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying like in general, right? Like if you're doing a treatment for a while, it's like not working, like listen to your body. Like if you're doing something that just doesn't feel right or eating foods that don't feel right, like listening to your body and like not continuing to do that just because someone said you should do it.
Makes sense. And it's interesting, like make that time and slow down,
Mhm.
or in fact your body will slow you down,
Unfortunately,
and
absolutely.
that's the thing that you want to avoid.
Exactly.
Um, what is your go-to now, right? You've been through this journey, you've tried
Mhm.
all sorts of crazy, wacky things. What's the craziest thing that you tried that you're like, nah, I'm not going to do that again?
Gosh, craziest thing I've tried that I didn't like. Like some of the new like electroneural stimulation kind of stuff, or
Mm.
like some of the lasers feel really intense on my nervous system. I tried some of them
Uh,
at the biohacking conference, and I felt like I was like crazy and out of whack for like 2 weeks. I was like, what did I do to myself? I was like, did I fry my nervous system? I was like, it's already so sensitive. So I feel like, and I talk to people that have tried those things that have like Lyme or sensitive nervous systems. So like, just be cautious. Just because everyone's like, oh, this is the latest greatest thing, like it may not work for you if you have a sensitive system.
mm.
So like just being conscious of that kind of stuff. And then, sometimes like some IVs, like everyone's doing it, and then you do them and you're like, I don't really feel anything, or it didn't feel good for me. Like exosomes, everyone was like super into for a while. I did those and I was like, oh, it just made me tired and didn't really do anything for me. So it's like, just because something's like the latest and greatest doesn't mean that it's going to work for you or be effective. So like, obviously you have to kind of experiment with things, but don't keep doing things because they're popular. Like people say everyone should be doing it, right?
Have you played around with peptides? Is that something
Yep.
that's
Yep.
yeah?
I do love peptides. Yeah. 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 I'm
Do
a
you have
big
a
fan.
favorite combination? Is that
Gosh.
part of your stack
Thymus,
regularly?
like thymus got me through so much, like especially when I was sick with Lyme, like thymosin alpha, thymosin beta, just like glandular thymus was like so good. That was such a game changer for me. And then I love BPC. I think that one's like a really helpful, like soothing one. And then I've been really into microdosing terzepatide, like especially since my lipedema surgeries, like the amount of anti-inflammatory relief I get from it has just been like a game changer. And like, like I said, I still get like lymphatic drainage. I still have like some water retention issues. Like it's not turning into like fibrotic fat anymore, but I still get swelling. But
Mm.
like the terzepatide just changed like the whole texture of like my legs and my body, and like less water retention, like less inflammation, less volatility in like my weight. Like I'm not necessarily doing it to like lose weight, but I don't want to gain weight from lipedema, right? And like just like
Mm.
there's like some days where I'm like I would just gain like 5, 6 pounds just in water retention, and it'd be super
Yeah.
volatile, and like that's really leveled out since using it. So a lot of people are using it for inflammation. A lot of women with lipedema are finding great success microdosing those. So it's pretty exciting to see those being used for more kind of like biohacker style applications instead of just weight loss. I
Have
think
you looked at retatrutide, like the so-called
yeah, I
GLP-3?
haven't. I haven't. I hear good things about that one though, so
It's on my radar. It's on
I
my
may
radar
try it
too.
out.
Because I think the third is like how your body manages fat, right? So it's
Yeah,
targeting three
yeah. It's supposed to be like
sites. So interesting.
yeah,
All right.
I'm
Well,
eyeing that one to try. I was like, the terzepatide's working so well, so I don't necessarily want to rock the boat. And I'm like, this seems to be working, but I'm always like down to experiment and
and
try
you're
a little more.
microdosing, right? So you're
Mhm.
not taking kind of what people are taking if they're
No.
trying to
And
lose
I
weight.
think
You're just like,
that's why they get such a bad rap, right? Like people start at such a high dose and they ramp up so quickly, and then all of a sudden they're just like, oh, I'm having all these like issues. I'm like, that's crazy. Like, I mean, I built up so tiny and so slowly, like over a year, and just like as soon as I felt like I was like kind of plateaued, I'd go up like a tiny bit. And then like I'm kind of at a place where I'm just like, I don't feel like I need to go up from here. But I can't imagine like starting at some of the dosages that people start at. And I don't know that you even need to, like, really,
are you doing weekly or super
weekly.
weekly? Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Well, unless there's anything we missed, and I'll certainly give you a question to share how people can connect with you. I'd like to jump into our wrap up questions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sounds great.
All right. So, Erica, do you have a target age that you want to live to?
Gosh, this is a tough one because I think people are so hung up on how old they want to live, but for me, it's about quality of life, right? Especially after what I experienced with Lyme. Like, I don't want to be 120, but like
Mm.
in bed, miserable. If I can live to 120 and like be active and doing things, like that's great. If I'm not active, like I don't want to be there, right? So,
So if you're active and doing things, right?
yeah,
So like if you have the same mental capacity as you have
yeah.
today and the same physical capacity as you have today, is there a limit?
I feel like 120 would be like a good amount, right?
Excellent. And
Like
how
I see my grandma and she's 101 and her mind is like totally there, but her body is not, right? So she's really struggling because she's just like, oh, she's almost sees it as like a punishment to like still be alive, even though she's like grateful that she gets to like talk to us and be here, obviously, right? But she's just kind of like, Like, this is not fun anymore. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I think you mentioned that when we got together at the biohacking conference. When we met, you were sharing that. Great that she's lived so long, and it would be nice if it were in better shape. Okay, so 120. How long do you think humans can live?
I mean, Dave Asprey says he's going to go to 180. We'll see. I think we're close to like people being able to live like a quality life up to 100, right? And like maybe push that to 120 here soon with a lot of the interventions. I also think there's a lot of stuff we're dealing with now that prevents us from like aging gracefully, right? Like environmental toxins and, all sorts of like diseases that we're dealing with at much younger ages. But there's a lot of cool things, hopefully kind of advancing that, maybe like peptides and things like that that can help get us to be a little bit more resilient and live longer. So we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
I know, right?
What are 2 to 3 protocols, habits, mindsets? Let's call them shortcuts because everybody likes shortcuts to longevity and a long health span that you would share.
Diet for sure. I mean, like I said, I couldn't believe like what a game changer that was. And not following like any specific diet type. Like I always like to say I eat the Erica diet now. Like I eat the foods that work for my body, the foods that don't. Occasionally I'll dabble in ones that I know aren't going to make me feel good, but I'm like, I got to live my life too, right? So, but like for
Yeah.
the most part, like keeping a very clean diet that's specific for you and what makes you feel good. Definitely like stress management, like nervous system
Mm,
management, like doing things like I mentioned, like the pulsetto, like vagus nerve or like HRV breathing techniques, because I think stress is one of the biggest things that ages us and like wears us down. And then I would say like, some sort of like detox or supportive therapy. We live in a
mm.
toxic world. There's mold everywhere. There's toxins. I live like, in the middle of LA. I'm like breathing in probably not the cleanest air every day. So whether that's like sauna, doing like detox baths, some kind of lymphatic support, just something to kind of like support your body, clearing out your environment.
Yeah. What are 1 to 2 things you think people get absolutely wrong regarding longevity and a long health span?
I think there's like an overuse of fasting. I think like people like to say like, oh, if you fast, you're gonna live longer and do all these things. I think there's a lot of people that shouldn't be fasting. I think women in particular need to be cautious of it. Like for me, my body can do like short stints of fasting, but like it really messes with my thyroid, really messes with my cortisol, and like really like being mindful of your hormones and how fasting is affecting you. I don't think fasting is for everybody. And I think people try to frame it in a way that like if you fast, you'll live longer, and I think people need to be careful with that. And then, gosh, what's another one that people should be careful of?
Or that they get absolutely wrong. And it's funny
Yeah,
how much harder this question is, right? Like I
yeah,
know what to do, but what do people get wrong? And every now and we see it on social media. So if that's all you got, that's fine.
yeah. I mean, I'll add one other one. I think cold plunge is getting like
Mm,
over recommended, and I think this is another one that like especially for women with like thyroid issues, mast cell activation. If you have mast cell activation and they're doing cold plunge, like there's a lot that shows that like it's not ideal for that. Like it's causing a lot of flares in mast cell activation. So you really kind of have to like meet yourself where you're at, right? Like and be like,
mm,
does this make me feel good? Like for me, cold plunge and cold therapy is like crash me. Like I get so tired, so crashed, so worn
mm,
out, and I'm like, it doesn't make me feel good. But I can sit in a sauna and like come out and be like, I'm ready to go. Like I feel so good. So like for me, heat therapy is much more effective than cold. I mean, obviously I know they do different things, but just
mm.
finding like what are the benefits that you're seeking from cold plunge and what other modalities can you achieve those benefits from that maybe work better for your body, right?
Excellent. And Erica, how can people contact you?
Yeah, so you can find my blog. It's thetrailtohealth.com, Instagram, TikTok, everything else is The Trail to Health as well. And then my podcast is This Healthy Life Podcast. On Instagram, it's on my Trail to Health website. And then my agency is fullcirclemedia.co.
And what in the near future are you excited about?
Health wise or life wise? Or all of it.
Whatever pops into your head first.
Definitely growing my agency. Like I've been absolutely loving it. So like I said, I started like our design agency 15 years ago that was focused on like enterprise UX stuff. And after I went through this healing journey, I was just like, I don't have any interest in this. Like I want to grow like enterprise companies. I was like, I want to do something in the health space. So being able to work with like really amazing practitioners, really amazing brands, and like working on their brand and content and being more immersed in it. And then also just kind of like the future of like longevity and things like that. Like I think things are going in a really interesting direction, and like peptides and all that kind of stuff. Like really excited to kind of see where all that goes and what new discoveries we find.
Excellent. All right. So you can find Erika, thetrailtohealth.com, this Healthy Life podcast, right? Is that, make sure I got that right. And then fullcirclemedia.co. And on the socials, it's the Trail to Health. That's how you find Erika. Erika, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Live Beyond the Norms podcast. Make sure to subscribe and follow. Also, make sure not to be that guy, the guy sharing this podcast with people who are not interested in living beyond the norms. If you would like to learn more about the ESS60 molecule, the molecule responsible for the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history, a full 90% extension of life, visit myvitalc.com. That's myvitalc as in carbon.com.